We are in a race between education and catastrophe.
The knowledge.
What's up, everybody? This is the Jedi. Now, being who I am and all the things that I represent in my life, there's no way I could let the sun go down on this day without doing a critical piece on Dr. King. But before I get into that, I wanted to begin with this update on one of my greatest heroes, and that's Muhammad Ali. As you guys know, I've been following this story with regard to Muhammad Ali's he's been very ill lately. And recently he had been in the hospital, and then he had been released, and then he was back in the hospital again. And then now it says boxing legend Muhammad Ali back in hospital ICU, found unresponsive at his home. At least he did make it past his birthday. Excuse me. His birthday was 2 days ago on the 17th. So I give thanks and praise to the Most High that he made it to his birthday at least. But alas, it looks like the time is growing short on this man. I love Muhammad Ali. I love him. As you guys know that listen and watch my videos faithfully, high upon my list of anyone that would be worthy of admiration from the Jedi is anyone who is willing to speak truth forcefully and passionately, and to speak it even when it is of great detriment to themselves. That is the mark of a hero for me. That is the mark of a man. That is the mark of anyone that is worthy of honor and glory. So this quick article, it says America's favorite heavyweight champion is currently fighting for his life in an Arizona hospital. The greatest of all time is in an undisclosed medical center this morning after guests at his home were unable to wake him up. According to RadarOnline.com, someone at the home reported he wasn't responding. He went to bed Tuesday night, but didn't wake up in the afternoon or evening the next day. He was sleeping for 24 hours. Last night, Ali was taken to ICU and is now said to be resting with his wife Lonnie and daughter Hannah at his side. Muhammad Ali was just released from the hospital last week after being admitted for a urinary tract infection on December 20th, which was originally believed to be pneumonia. The last time the public heard from the champ was in this picture from early December, when he quashed rumors he was close to death on his very first picture on Instagram. And there's my hero there. You can still see his wisdom, you can still see his sense of humor, and he still looks fantastic. A lot of people his age would look far worse than that. Of course, with age and time comes, the skin changes and, bags under your eyes and all these things. But that's still my man. And I will fight you in the street. And then there's I don't know if this is this is a tweet, I think, from somebody. Sunshine, new to Earl Hustle 411, brings a unique writing style. Okay, forget that. I don't know what that is. That's nothing. Yeah, that's nothing. Anyways, so that's my quick update there on Muhammad Ali. And so let us all keep him in our prayers and thoughts. The day that we lose this man, it will be a great, 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 great loss for me. A great loss. I've had so much admiration and respect for Muhammad Ali, and I had the opportunity to meet him when I was a child, and that's a day I hope I will never forget, that I was able to stand and touch this man and to shake his hand and to be in his presence. And few people can say that, quite frankly. Few people. So long live the king. And now I want to get into the main event of this production. What I'd like to do is I'd like to take you through a couple of articles, and I have some video clips. What my objective is in this production is to present to you, we're all going to hear all about, the usual stuff that we hear when it comes around to the celebration of Dr. King's birthday and the holiday weekend and all of it all. All right, we're over it. All right, we're over it. What I want to do is I want to go beneath the rug. I want to go underneath the rug. All right. I'm going to be presenting to you some evidence that I've been aware of for many years that suggests very strongly that, Jessie Jackson was somehow involved in the assassination of Dr. King. There were others whose names and faces are unknown to us. Their presence is known, but their names and face are unknown to us. But his name and face is known to us. And as I've said, it is highly suggested that he had something to do with the operation regarding the events that surrounded the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. And so I'm going to be exploring that. I think that before I get into this, I would like to play first a clip. Last night I was watching the tribute to legends from the civil rights era that the Messiah of all things, Oprah Winfrey, presented on her show last night. And, I was struck by the fact that, her home in Montecito, California, she calls it the Promised Land. How fitting is that? The Promised Land, especially for a woman like Oprah Winfrey, who literally came from nothing, zilch, zero, nada, nothing, a red dirt road in Mississippi, to become who we all know she is today. But her place is called the Promised Land. I just thought, wow. And just a random note on that too, I'd like to mention that several years ago when she first did her Legends Ball, where she honored women who had been instrumental in paving the way and opening doors for others and so forth, which I actually taped, by the way. I love Oprah's success. I don't care what anybody else wants to say about her. I understand who Oprah Winfrey is, and I love her success. I do. I love to see her go. I do. But I'm also the type of person that really just does backflips and jumping jacks when something wonderful is happening to anyone. I love that. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. It gives me goosebumps. It just gives me goosebumps. And so, but there's a scene, at the beginning of the show she did years ago when she did the Legends Ball. It opens up and she's standing there, right? It's an outdoor shot. And she goes, "Hi everybody, I'm Oprah Winfrey. I'm standing on my front lawn." Why that's so funny, you guys, is because it looks like a goddamn state park. You know what I mean? Like, and the house is so far in the distance in the background that she had to be airlifted to even that point on her front lawn where she was at. I just loved it. I loved it. I loved it. "Hi everybody, I'm standing on my front lawn," and she has those hands up. You know how she do them hands, and I just love it. I love it. But anyways, I just wanted to share that. But anyways, I want to open up with this clip from Dr. King because it is the Promised Land speech. And when I was preparing this production for you, as soon as I was watching that again, I thought about watching that last night and how it said from the Promised Land from Montecito, California, because that's the name of Oprah's property there in California. I love that. I love that. I love it. All right, so let's go to this clip now first.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Very powerful, very powerful, very powerful, very powerful. I love when he says, but I've been to the mountaintop. And I've looked over and I've seen. I love that speech. Whenever I see that, I would encourage you to go back and watch that for two reasons. A, because when he says that, every time I've ever watched that speech, and every time he says that, there's so much more in that word seen and how he holds it out. And I've seen the promised land. You know? I also want to point out to you that any of Dr. King's speeches that you usually only hear excerpts from, you need to go on YouTube and you need to watch the entire that speech that I just played. That was just an excerpt. Alright? The whole speech is, I think, 40-something minutes long that he spoke that night. And you need to go and watch that so that you have full context of the man. They only play what glorifies their image of the civil rights movement and his role in it. You see, that night, Dr. King was there to speak to sanitation workers, the garbage men. All right? That was his mission that he was on at the time that he was murdered. And there's so much more in the speech. So much more. And you can't march around the earth talking about you know who Dr. King is if you don't go and see his full bodies of work. It's in that spirit that I want to bring to you now the I Have a Dream speech. Because decades and decades we've heard, you know, free at last, thank God Almighty we're free at last. That's it. And how many times have we been at any, you know, Black History Month productions or even Dr. King tributes and things, and they have some little boy get up there and, you know, recite the speech, and it's usually only the part that you've been spoon-fed. There's so much more to the speech. There's so much more to the speech. And I actually sat my nephew down and shared the speech with him and made him read it and learn it. You know, I want him to understand the full context. So I'm going to share the full speech with you here now. He delivered this on August the 28th, 1963, at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. I want to also share with you that the first time that when I was living in the nation's capital, I was living in Maryland, just over the border. And but anyways, that people that live in Maryland and DC, we really don't go to the National Mall unless it's an event or something. It's kind of like people that live in Vegas. It's not a big deal for them. Oh, so what? I live in Vegas. It's nothing. So such is the case. But it dawned on me one day, like, you need to go to the National Mall. And just like, I took all the tours and went to the Air and Space Museum and all this stuff. All right. The National Archives and all that, saw the pristine bullets that they claim killed Kennedy, and on and on. All right. But I also wanted to go to the Lincoln Memorial. And what you don't know is there's a whole place up underneath the memorial. There's like a museum, if you will, and with all sorts of artifacts and showing you the history of the monument and all this and all. All right. Or the Lincoln Memorial and stuff. So I wanted to go and stand where Dr. King had stood. It just dawned on me, I want to go stand where he stood. Let me just do that. And it was me and a couple of friends of mine who had flown in to visit. And we went, and I must tell you that when I stood on that spot, I had my back to the reflecting pool, which is what that water that you see that stretches out, and then you see the Washington Monument in the distance, that big obelisk. All right, because we're trying to find the exact spot and everything, and blah blah blah. All right, so I had seen it in pictures and in film, my whole life growing up and all of it. I will tell you that when I stood on that spot and I turned around and looked down that mall, I was unconsolable. It was as if the spirit of all the ancestors was upon me. I was crying those hot tears that sting your face when they go down. The energy, I must tell you, was something I never experienced. It was overwhelming, and there was no way I could have known I would have that response. No way I could have known that. No way. And so, but alas, there was then a few years later, there was a buddy of mine that had came to visit, and we went down to the National Mall, and I didn't even mention my experience. He went and stood there. The same thing happened. And then there was another time that another friend, and the same thing happened. Same thing happened. I'm telling you, that spot is hallowed ground for me. It really is. It was just powerful. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Wow. That now here, and for me it would have just been enough consciously to just stand there and go, wow, now I'm actually standing in the place where I've seen in books forever. But I couldn't have imagined that energy would come over me and that I would be transported back in time, it seemed, and that it seemed like all of the hope and the struggle and the energy and all of it of the ancestors was upon me in that moment. Very powerful moment. Powerful, powerful moment. So, alas, this is where Dr. King delivered this speech. And this is how it goes. It says, I'm happy to join you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Just that opening line was prophetic because it clearly has and is. 5 score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. And so we come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. Wow. 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 Just that, everybody, describes you right now. Right now. That speech could have been given yesterday. Right now. That's you. That's me. That's us. And that's this godforsaken pile of vomit that they call America. Right now, that speech is current. Just that alone. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vault of opportunity of this nation. And so we come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end but a beginning, and those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. And there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwind of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, We must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny, and they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. Y'all know I got issues with that, but we're going to go on. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating "for whites only." We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulation. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells, and some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the same storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. But you have been veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, and so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. I have a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Missouri, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my four little children, will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope, and this is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And this will be the day. This will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountain side, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. Now, that speech is prophetic in so many ways, but it was also an indictment of America. Or to put it in real easy terms for everybody, this was throwing shade at America. You see? This was shading America, calling it on the carpet, challenging its doctrines, daring you to live up to what you have on paper. Like he said in the previous speech that I played for you from the Promised Land, we're asking America to do what it says it's going to do on paper. Do that. Oh, you look good on paper. But it's words. It's words. And I also wanted to bring this speech because this speech testifies to your current condition right now. Right now, this speech is current. So when the Jedi, proclaimed to you in 2014 and 2015, in many of my productions, when I say to you, I say, my people, you are the same people you were in 1821 when the white man handed you that Christian religion. When I say to you, you're still the same people you were during the Civil Rights era. This is from which I speak. It is from this consciousness and this knowledge that I make that statement whenever I make it. We are the same people. Our condition has not changed. And if you want something you never had before, you must do something you never did before. I always say that to you. I always say that to you. I always say that. That's a very important piece of document right there. But your children should know the entire speech, everybody. And you should go paragraph by paragraph and explain it to them. Don't just give them free at last, free at last. Give them all of it. Give them all of it. And there's one other line I wanted to point out, and then we're going to move on, where he says, because Obama just got a lot of flack recently when he basically was telling her, that we have to be patient. This was after Ishmael murdered those cops in New York. And this speech even speaks to that. Where is it now? Okay, here it is. It says, we have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the gradualizing drug, the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Understand that now. Understand that. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. So when they're saying, can they just stop the protests while we have these funerals for these devils? No, we cannot. It's no time for cooling off. And as he said, or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. That means, well, gradually you'll get just a little bit of a time. You've got to crawl before you can walk, and we have to... No. We're over that. We're over it. We're over it. We're over it. We're over it. So we want it now. Right now. Right now. Right now. That's why he said the fierce urgency of now. The times require it. The fierce urgency of now. The times require it. And so you don't have time to sit down and chill out. Or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. I love that. I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And then also, just random, how he said we've come to this hallowed spot. As I said, I felt like that was hallowed ground when I stood in his footsteps there on those at that Lincoln Memorial, and all of that energy came at me. That is hallowed ground for me. Hallowed ground. Wow. So teach your children, everybody, the full speech, but not just this. All of Dr. King's speeches, all of his letters, you should know them all. All of it. You need to know it all. Because then do you get the context of the man and his mission. Now, I want to move into the next phase of this, you guys. And if you haven't detected already, this is probably going to go a little long, this video. Because there are essential things that I have deemed necessary to include in order to bring you a complete thought. I don't want it to be disjointed, and there's things that must be included. So I don't want to sacrifice information and knowledge for the sake of time. Alright? Now, a lot of people, I'm bringing you other things now that you may not be aware of, such as this first article. It says, did you know U.S. government was found guilty in conspiracy to assassinate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Alright? I'm also going to be bringing you a clip from Dexter King. Many of you may not be aware also that Dr. King's youngest son, Dexter, actually met with the alleged killer of Dr. King. And I'm bringing this for a couple of reasons when I bring you that clip, because A, Dexter looks exactly the fuck like his father. He looks like him, he sounds just like him, it is him. And every time we see anything from the King family, it's goddamn fat ass Martin Luther King Jr. and Bernice. I'm over it. That I'm over. You see, his presence, just his physical presence could do so much. Could you imagine any of the marches that we've had after the Michael Brown murder? Had that been the headline instead of, goddamn it, Jessie Jackson and Al Sharpton? But this man who looks exactly like his father and sounds just like him. It's him. Somebody bring me a Valium and get me whatever Elvis took. Bring me that. But anyway, it's stunning. It's stunning. It's stunning. And but I'm going to bring you that. But we'll begin here now with this article with regard to the government being found guilty in a conspiracy to murder Dr. King. Let me make sure I've got let's bring that in a little bit more. There we go. Now, as I told you in the opener, I'm going to also be bringing you evidence in this that I've been aware of for many years, that Jessie Jackson was involved in this murder. All right. It says now the caption of the picture says, Dr. King stands with other civil rights leaders on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, on April 3rd, 1968, a day before he was assassinated at approximately the same place. From left are Hosea Williams, Jessie fucking Jackson, Dr. King, and then Ralph Abernathy. The 39-year-old Nobel laureate was the proponent of nonviolence in the 1960s American Civil Rights Movement, and King is honored with a national U.S. holiday celebrated in January. All right. Okay, what am I rubbing against? Something's rubbing, and I'm getting it in my mic. There we go. It says, though the United States government has wrapped Dr. King's legacy in the American flag, waving his words to symbolize racial harmony and patriotic solidarity, even as institutionalized white supremacy remains embedded in policies detrimental to the very black community he tirelessly strived to uplift, very little is spoken of the fact that a Memphis jury found the United States government guilty of conspiring to assassinate Dr. King on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, April 4th, 1968. It's very important. Very, very, very important. Now it says, after 4 weeks of testimony and over 70 witnesses in a civil trial in Memphis, Tennessee, 12 jurors reached a swift, unanimous verdict on December 8, 1999, that Dr. King was assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, the New York Times reported at that time. The King family, who the King family who filed the civil suit was awarded $100. They donated the minuscule amount to charity. $100. Lloyd Jowers, owner of Jim's Grill, which was close to the Lorraine Motel, claimed that the shot which killed Dr. King was fired from behind his restaurant, and that local, state, and federal U.S. government agencies and the mafia were all involved. James Earl Ray, who pleaded guilty to assassinating King, was renting a room above Jowers' establishment and was allegedly an unwitting scapegoat. The restaurant owner named Memphis Police Department Officer Lieutenant Earl Clark as Dr. King's assassin, according to a press conference transcript, a claim that would later be called into question along with other shocking details. According to the U.S. Justice Department, which painstakingly attempted to dismantle Jowers' claim and the mountain of evidence presented in the Memphis trial, Jowers insisted that a Memphis produce dealer who was involved with the mafia, gave Jowers $100,000 to hire an assassin and assured him that the police would not be at the scene of the shooting. Jowers also reported that he hired a hitman to shoot Dr. King from behind Jim's grill and received the murder weapon prior to the killing from someone with a name sounding like Raoul. Jowers further maintained that James Earl Ray did not shoot Dr. King and that he did not believe Ray knowingly participated in the conspiracy. See? King's widow, Coretta Scott King, expressed her gratitude to the jury and called on media to get the truth to the public. She says, there is abundant evidence of a major high-level conspiracy in the assassination of my husband, Martin Luther King Jr., and the Civil Rights Court's unanimous verdict has validated our belief. I wholeheartedly applaud the verdict of the jury, and I feel that justice has been well served in their deliberations. This verdict is not only a great victory for my family, but also a great victory for America. It is a great victory for truth itself. It is important to know that this was a swift verdict, delivered after about an hour of jury deliberation. The jury was clearly convicted by the extensive evidence that was presented during the trial, that in addition to Mr. Jowers, the conspiracy of the mafia, local, state, and federal government agencies were deeply involved in the assassination of my husband. The jury also affirmed overwhelming evidence that identified someone else, not James Earl Ray, as the shooter, and that Mr. Ray was set up to take the blame. I want to make it clear that my family has no interest in retribution. Instead, our sole concern has been that the full truth of the assassination has been revealed and adjudicated in a court of law. As we pursued this case, some wondered why we would spend the time and energy addressing such a painful part of the past. For both our family and the nation, the short answer is that we had to get involved because the system did not work. Those who are responsible for the assassination were not held to account for their involvement. Okay, what's going on? The page disappeared for a second, y'all. Sorry. Where were we? Damn it, come on. Were not held account for their involvement. This verdict, therefore, is a great victory for justice and truth. It has been difficult and painful experience to revisit this tragedy, but we felt we had an obligation to do everything in our power to seek the truth, not only for the peace of mind of our family, but also bring closure and healing to the nation. We have done what we can to reveal the truth, and we now urge you as members of the media, and we call upon elected officials and other persons of influence to do what they can to share the revelation of this case to the widest possible audience. And I would suggest to you that they didn't do that. Alright? I would have remembered. You know what I mean? And I'm bringing this because most people don't know this, probably. You know, that are listening to me now. No idea that this finding had been made. That, alas, there was a conspiracy to murder Dr. King. And that it wasn't James Earl Ray. It just wasn't. You know, it's always the lone gunman, usually with 3 names. In the case of Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth. Kennedy, Lee Harvey Oswald. Dr. King, James Earl Ray. Reagan, John Hinckley Jr. You know what I mean? So it gets into an area, and I even forget the dude's name that shot John Lennon. I think he had 3 goddamn names too. But it's always the lone nut that they allege and give you. Some patsy. You know, oh look, it's him. Look, oh look over there, look. You see? When that's exactly the place to not look. And that brings us to this piece now. The conspiracy of the conspiracy to kill Martin Luther King. Not a theory, but a fact. Said should the United States government be allowed to assassinate its own citizens? That question was in the air briefly not long ago, April 4th, in an excellent day of Revive It. On April 4th, 1968, the government was part of a successful conspiracy to assassinate Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That's not just some wingnut conspiracy theory. It's not a theory at all. It is a fact according to our legal system. In 1999, in Shelby County, Tennessee, Lloyd Jowers was tried before a jury of his peers, made up equally of white and black citizens, if it matters, on the charge of conspiring to kill Dr. King. The jury heard testimony about 4 full weeks. On the last day of the trial, the attorney for the King family, which brought the suit against Jowers, concluded his summation by saying, quote, "We're dealing in conspiracy with agents of the city and Memphis and the governments of the state of Tennessee and the United States of America. We ask you find that conspiracy existed." It took the jury only 2.5 hours to reach its verdict. Jowers and others, including governmental agencies, were parties in this conspiracy. I don't know whether the jury's verdict reflects the factual truth of what happened on April 4th, 1968. Juries have been known to make mistakes, and probably rather more often, juries have made mistakes that remain unknown. But within our system of government, when a crime is committed, it's a jury, and only a jury, that is entitled to decide on the facts. If a jury makes a mistake, the only way to rectify it is to go back into court and establish a more convincing version of the facts. That's the job of the judicial branch, not the executive. So far, no one has gone into court to challenge the verdict of the King assassination. Yet the version of history most Americans know is very different, because it has been shaped much more by the executive than the judicial branch. Right after the jury handed down its verdict, the federal government, Department of Justice, went into high gear, sparing no effort to try to disprove the version of the facts that the jury endorsed. Not in a court of law, but in the court of public opinion. The government's effort was immensely successful. Very few Americans are aware the trial ever happened, which is what I just said to you. People don't even know this. They don't even know it. Just like earlier in the piece when I brought you those speeches. You know, most people only know just the little sound bites that they've heard. And that's a shame. You cannot be declaring yourself a black person if you don't know these things. Period. I don't care if you light skin, if you mixed, if you dark skin, if you blue black, if you double black. It doesn't matter. You're not a citizen of your race if you don't know all of its moving parts. Period. 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 Just the same way as you can be black as a damn shoe and be white at heart, you're not one of us. Being black is more than just your skin color. It's your state of mind. It's your state of intelligence. It's your state of knowledge and self and knowledge of self. This is what makes you completely a black person, an African. I'm over it. As it says, few Americans are aware that the trial ever happened, much less that the jury was convinced of a conspiracy involving the federal government. To understand why, let's reflect on how history, as understood by the general public, is made. We take the fact we have, we take the facts we have, which are rarely complete, and then we fill in the gaps with our imaginations, for the most part, with our hopes and or fears. The result is a myth, not a lie, but a mixture of proven facts and the fiction spawned by our imagination, our imaginings. In this case, we have two basic myths to conflict. We have two basic myths in conflict. Why can't I read right now? Somebody bring me a gun so I can kill myself, quick. In this case, we have two basic myths in conflict. One is a story Americans have been telling since the earliest days of our nation. Back in not so merry old England, people could be imprisoned or even executed on the whim of some government official. They had no right to prove their innocence in a fair, impartial court. We fought a bloody war to throw off the British yoke, precisely to guarantee ourselves basic rights, like the right to a fair trial by a jury of our peers. We would fight again, if needed, to preserve the fundamental right. This story explains why we are supposed to let a jury, and only a jury, determine the facts. By odd coincidence, as I was writing this, the mail arrived with my summons to serve on a local jury. The website it directed me to urged me to feel, quote, a sense of pride and respect for our system of justice, because about 95% of all jury trials in the world take place in the United States. Then there's another myth, a story that says the federal government has only assassinated American citizens who were truly bad people and aimed to do the rest of us harm. The government would never assassinate an innocent citizen. Most Americans devoutly hope that story is true, and most Americans don't put Martin Luther King in the bad guy category, so they resist believing what the legal system tells us is true about his death. Perhaps a lot of Americans would not be too disturbed to learn that the local government in Memphis or even the Tennessee state government were involved. There's still plenty of prejudice against white white Southerners. But the federal government, it's a thought too shocking for most Americans to even consider. So they fill in the facts with what they want to believe. And the myth of James O'Ray, the lone assassin, lives on. Hail and hearty. And I want to say something about that paragraph as well, because that also describes black folks are ready to believe, because we understand the level of evil that this country is, that it is the quintessence of evil and devilry. But that sickness that they just described, I think, describes white Americans. How many white people have I talked to, and they all have the exact same tone of voice and the exact same physical reaction and everything, like as if they all knew each other and they didn't. When you lay out the facts about 9/11 being a false flag event that was perpetrated by the government, Bush and crew. And they will say, why would your country kill 3,000 of its own people? That, what I just said to you, is every single one of them. That's exactly how they even say it, and everything. Because again, you're dealing with the people who want to believe that they are perfect and wonderful even when they are not. And certainly their country must be that shining beacon on the hill. You see, it's a sickness. It's a sickness. I always say, if you love anything or anyone, you got to also be willing to be critical of that thing or that person. Like Janet Jackson is my wife, and I will fight you in the street. But I'm the first to call Janet a fake bitch when I know she's being fake. I know Janet when she's being fake. I know. We've been together for too long. I already know. I know. All right. Or if you're a sports fan, you know, your team loses, you can't be sourpuss about it. Okay, you lost. So what? Still be a fan. If that's your team, just be on that team. Good, fine. You'll win some, you'll lose some. You see? If you're that put off when things are not perfect, then you're not truly dedicated to that thing. You're not. You see, even any relationship that you're in, it's not even a good relationship no matter how good you think it is. It's only as good as its problem, as its trial times. You see? Not when everything's perfect. How is it when you're fighting, when there's a disagreement? That's the test of anything. Of anything. Of anything. Even a business. You know, you can make claims to me and advertise to me all damn day long. Oh, we're wonderful and our products are amazing and we're the best and we're number one and all of it. But now, when I have a problem with your product or service and I get on the phone to talk to you, that's where the rubber meets the road. That is the test. That is the indication of any company or corporation or business. You see, what is your customer service? What is your conflict resolution like? What's that? That's the mark of a good or a bad company. It goes on. Since that's the popular myth, it's the one the corporate mass media have always purveyed. After all, their job is to sell newspapers and boost ratings in order to boost profits. Just a few days after the trial ended in New York, the New York Times, our newspaper of record, went to great length to cast doubt on the verdict and assure readers in its headlines that the trial would have, quote, little effect, an accurate though self-fulfilling prophecy. Imagine if the accused had been not a white Southerner but a black man with known ties to the government. And by the way, I want to say James Earl Ray was not a Southerner. That was another lie they told on him. All right, he was from Illinois. All right, he was not a Southerner. All right, that's a lie. All right, and I'm going to back that up in a little while. But using their bad information, they say, imagine if the accuser had not been a white Southerner but a black man with known ties not to the government but to the Black Panther Party. You can bet that the trial verdict would have been banned on or bannered on every goddamn front page. The conspiracy would be known to every American and enshrined in every history book as the true version of events. None of this necessarily means that the federal government and the mass media are covering up actual facts. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Again, I don't claim to know what really happened on April 4th, 1968. But there surely were people in the federal government who thought they had good reason to join a conspiracy to get rid of Dr. King. He was deep in planning for the poor people's campaign, which would bring poor folks of every race and ethnicity to Washington, D.C. The plan was to have them camp on the mall until the government enacted major economic reforms to lift everyone out of poverty. That meant redistributing wealth, an idea that made perfect sense to Dr. King, who was a harsh critic of the evils of capitalism as well as communism. And that's why I told you guys you got to go back and watch that whole speech of the Promised Land. You see, that's very important, you guys. It's very important. Like I said, you have to be able to get him in complete context. All right. It goes on. Now, none of this necessarily means that the federal government. I'm sorry, I read that. But there surely were people in the federal government Wait, we read that. I'm sorry. It also meant uniting whites and non-whites in the lower income brackets to persuade them that the suffering they shared in common was stronger than the racial prejudice that divided them. Dr. King did not have to be a prophet to foresee that the longer whites blamed non-whites rather than the rich for their troubles, the easier it would be to block measures for redistributing wealth. The unifying effect of the Poor People's Campaign spelled trouble for those whose wealth might be redistributed. At the same time, Dr. King was the most famous and respected critic of the war in Vietnam. By 1968, he was constantly preaching that the war was not just a tragic mistake, it was the logical outgrowth of the American way of life, based on what he called the inextricably linked triplets of materialism, racism, and militarism, racism, and materialism. Had he lived, the Poor People's Campaign would have become a powerful vehicle for attacking all three and showing just how inseparable they were. Yes, plenty of people in the federal government thought they had good reason to put an end to the work of Dr. King. But that hardly proves federal government complicity in a conspiracy to kill him. So let's assume for a moment, just for the sake of argument, that the jury was wrong, that James Earl Ray did the shooting and acted alone. The federal government would still have good reason to suppress the conspiracy story. Essentially, all those reasons boil down to a matter of trust. There is already immense mistrust in the federal government. Imagine if everyone knew, and every history book said, that our legal system has established as fact the government's complicity in the assassination. I don't know why I'm saying words that don't exist, you guys. Maybe it's the text. Maybe it's something is playing with me. Am I in the early stages of Alzheimer? I mean, what am I going through right now? If the federal government has a convincing argument that the jury was wrong, we all deserve to hear it. There's little advantage to having such uncertainty hanging in the air after 45 years. But the government should make its argument in open court in front of a jury of our peers. In America, we have only one way to decide the facts of guilt or innocence, not through the media or gossip or imagination, but through the slowly grinding machinery of the judicial system. At least that's the story I want to believe. Alright, so now this, again, the value for this was, again, just bringing home the understanding that there was a trial there was a case brought by the family that and I think that they softballed it, really. You know what I mean? They softballed it. And okay, fine, the media didn't run with it. But where was Coretta? Where's the rest of the family and all of them that should have been out? Listen, if they snap their finger, the press shows up. They're the King family. They have a lot of power. So don't blame it on the media. Where was y'all asses not holding press conferences? You see? And going on talk shows and making sure that people knew that this went on. I hate to say it, but you guys know I don't give a damn who it hurts or what feelings I bruise. I must speak truth. And so my truth is on this is I have been suspect of the damn family for many years. You know what I mean? Like, they are not really doing what I feel like they could be doing. You know what I mean? I don't know what I expect them to do, but I know what I expect them not to do. And I just think that they are not on TV and in the public enough, using the weight of their presence to affect change. I really don't. It's like they show up at different things and they're honored, and the King family's here, and like I say, it's always Martin Luther King Jr. the second, and it's always, goddamn it, Bernice. I'm over them. You know what I mean? I'm over them. And maybe there's something going on in the family as far as the family dynamic that we don't see Dexter a lot, because he is the spitting image of his father. He, not just image, but his voice. If he was standing behind you and he spoke, you'd be like, oh my God, Dr. King is alive. Oh my God. It's him. And so it's to that point that I want to go to this now, because many of you don't know this either, that he went and met with the wasn't Fat Ass Bernice and Martin Luther King Jr. II. No, it was Dexter that went and met with James Earl Ray, the alleged killer of Dr. King. All right, I want to deal with this portion of it first, and then we're going to get into Jessie. All right, because those clips are going to be a little bit more involved, and there's just some strategic things that I need to do in order to present that in a way that will be absorbable for my viewing and listening audience. So I want to go now to this clip now of Dexter King, the twin of his father, talking to James Earl Ray, and then I want to do some analysis of the media's reaction after that. Let's go to the clip.
In the prison hospital in Nashville, Tennessee today, another remarkable moment of a different kind altogether. This was a face-to-face meeting between the son of the late Martin Luther King Jr. and the man who is serving a 99-year sentence for his assassination. Here's NBC's Federico Whitfield.
Dexter King arrived at this Nashville prison to meet the man serving time for the death of his father, Dr. Martin Luther King.
Long anticipated visit.
The youngest son wanted to look into the eyes of a terminally ill James Earl Ray and ask one question in particular.
Did you kill my father?
No, I didn't know.
And then King offered this.
I believe you, and my family believes you, and we are going to do everything in our power to try and make sure that justice will prevail.
Their meeting became a one-hour friendly encounter. King and Ray sat only 3 feet across from one another. King listened intently to a frail 69-year-old Ray who was battling liver disease. They talked briefly about Ray's health and of hope that the courts will soon give Ray the trial he never had. In 1969, Ray confessed to killing Dr. King, but later recanted, saying he was framed. Over the years, Ray has tried unsuccessfully to get a trial. Last February, the King family testified in Memphis to help reopen the case. An appellate court is now considering the request. Prison doctors have said without a liver transplant, Ray has only months to live, and no donor has been made available. That continues to heighten the King family's concern. Ray may never tell his version of the truth in court. After the meeting, King said it was a success.
I can now feel somewhat relieved that, you know, I heard with my own ears, I saw with my own eyes, not relying on a third party.
He said it was an experience the King family hoped would bring some closure, and Dexter King says for him, it did. Frederica Whitfield, NBC News, Nashville.
Now, I want to break in here really quick because it goes directly into the other part of it. I wanted to break in real quick because what I want to point out is this whole piece with Matt Lauer. Remember, this is the White Devil media, all right? And so that it's white devilry going on, all right, at all times. The tone is what I want you to be aware of. This is a style that you will always see and hear whenever another thought or point of view or possible truth is being pitted against whatever the pervasive lie is that's been sold to the public. All right, I'll tell you what this is and I'll give you an example. First, in this, you're going to hear him say, now you met with, I'm paraphrasing his words now. You'll hear them. You met with James Earl. Why do you believe him? You know, like, what? It's like, why are you doing this, Tone? Like, what is this? Like, what do you believe him? All right. And then I want you to juxtapose that to when they roll in the Zionist white devil Jew who will be up there speaking. He's an author that has written books about the King family and the assassination, blah, blah, whatever. All right. But he represents the pervasive lie that has been sold to the public. And you'll notice the difference, the tone that Matt Lauer takes with him versus the one he takes with Dexter King. Now, an example is, and they all do it, but I'll give you another example. There's a video where, a news clip where Geraldo was interviewing this guy that's involved with the 9/11 Truth Organization. I forget his name, Jimmy something. All right. And they always set it up like they're going to bring you something that's going to be the truth, and they're going to let something come out. But the interviewer, in that case it was Geraldo, who needs to fucking die. And for my Latinos out there, you guys, if you haven't already, you need to fucking divorce, goddammit, Geraldo. I'm declaring him a fucking coon and a sellout to the Latino people. I'm declaring it. And I'm not a Latino, but I'm declaring it. Alright? And so, but anyway, he's like, Jimmy, why, now, you said, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You see, I tell you guys all the time, they all go through media training. You see, and so, but you also have an editor, and in the case of television media, not only do you have an editor, but you have a director and a producer, all right, that's telling you what's going to go on and what's going to happen, all right? Nothing is just authentic and organic and just happening as you see it. It's not. Every fucking thing is designed for maximum brainwash effect and to have you thinking whatever they dictate to you. So I wanted to just point that out real quick. So listen to the tone, but Dexter is able to hold his own. I would like for him to maybe have been a little bit more fiery, but that's just my brand. He does a good job of holding his own. I'll just say that. But doesn't he look just like his damn father, you guys? Just like him. Wow. Just like him. And okay, Dr. King was in his 30s when he was assassinated, so he had started to age a little bit. But in his younger days, you gotta look like something to get Coretta. Come on now. So Dexter is not only looks like his father from his younger days, but he's also a good-looking man at that. That all matters. So when you think about in the context of today's issues that we're dealing with, instead of having fucking that processed hair ass Al Sharpton out there in the front and marching, or Jessie Jackson, can you imagine the visual effect it would have on people's psyche when we're still struggling in 2015 as we were in the 1960s when Dr. King was alive? It would be like transporting it back in time. It would snap people into, wait a minute, and it would do a good thing. It would do some things for my people that think this shit is some ancient history. To see his son marching there and looking just like him, be like, fuck, this shit is like it was yesterday. We're back at 1960, and that's what my people need to be in the frame of mind of. You can't think that you've gone anywhere. You haven't done a fucking thing. You're still in the 1960s. This is still, goddammit, 1960. This is. Oh, I'm so upset that I don't see this brother out there with marching and doing stuff. I'm over it. Anyway, this is just a break-in. Let's go back to the news report, and I'll talk about it on the other side. Let's go.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Take me back to the moment when you reached out and shook James Earl Ray's hand. What was that like?
It was very moving, a feeling of relief to finally meet face-to-face with the man who has been accused, but has since, from the beginning, said he was innocent. I continue to hear that he confessed, and in fact, he didn't confess. He pled guilty, which is different, technically speaking.
So when you asked him, did you kill my father, in no uncertain terms, and he said, no, I did not, why do you believe him?
Well, I believe him because there's so much new evidence that has been presented to me and my family vis-a-vis his attorney, Bill Pepper. Also, the fact of the matter is, he has said from the beginning he was innocent. I asked him why he pled guilty. He said basically his attorney at the time cut a deal behind the scenes with the district attorney, and unbeknownst to him, he was forfeiting his rights to a trial. As soon as he found that out, 3 days later, he recanted and has since been trying to get a trial. So, spiritually speaking, I felt very moved by the meeting because for me and my family, it brings us closer to the process of reconciliation, healing, and ultimately closure.
You mentioned your family. Your mother, Coretta Scott King, was not at the meeting. I'm sure you talked to her afterward. What was her impression?
Well, she felt it was a very courageous thing to do for all of us. I mean, I think spiritually speaking, my family was there. They were not there in the flesh, but or physically, but spiritually, very much supportive. I think everybody felt proud of the fact that we were now closer firsthand, not through hearsay or third-party representatives, but closer to getting at this truth.
Now, as soon as that part ends, it goes right into this next part, and I wanted to break in again, you guys. This is more effective for me. Now, that's not enough for the white devil media. I want you to listen to how this Jane Pauley bitch opens up. You know, like it could, you know, it was a breakthrough moment for James O'Reilly, who had been trying to be heard, but many saw it as a bizarre but many, you see, listen, in sales, if you want to be a dishonest salesperson, one of the keys to success in selling, if you want to go that route, if you're not a Muslim, then you always want to make it seem like everybody's doing it. You see? And the media uses this all the time. Many are saying, probably nobody has said the shit. Nobody. They go, but many are saying, well then put up a grid, put up a bunch of names, you know what I mean, or something. Do some interviews. Show some people on the street or some shit. It's just they pull shit out of the air. This is how you sway opinion. You know what I mean? You want to sell something from an idea in the media to a product to a person. It could be your first damn customer. You just go up to them and be like, you know what? You know, this product is so and so. Everybody's buying it. I can't even keep them in stock. I mean, they're just really just hot right now. Oh my, everybody's buying it. You know, and people will buy it, I'm telling you. So this is what they do. This is one of the ways they allow that instead of you absorbing common sense and truth because your mind is saying that's a good thing, they come right in and go, no, don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to that. We have to always have another part. We always have to have devil's advocate, and that's bullshit. I always tell you guys, there's only two things. There's no two sides to a story. There isn't. You need to reject that and stop using that. There's the truth and there's bullshit. That's all there is. This is not complicated. It's not rocket science. All right? There's the truth and there's bullshit. That's it. That's it. What he did was a good thing. It was noble and right. And also, wouldn't you want to know? Okay, the dude didn't die. He's still alive. He's incarcerated. And alas, he's even terminally ill. I want to go there and say, you know what? Did you fucking kill my dad or not? Did you? Plus, you must remember, he is the youngest son. He's the youngest. And me being the youngest one and the last child from my mother, I know that and plus not knowing my mother, and he was young when his father died, I have inclinations that my brothers and sisters don't have. Like, for many, many years, I'm like, I'm not related to them people, because they don't think like me. They're not motivated like me. They're different people. And I would want that. Like, if I can know that, I want to know it. Let me go see this dude. But then they're going to bring in now to scatter your brain, because the American public are the dumbest people on earth. I'm going to say it again. The American public is the dumbest fucking people on earth. Statement of fact. And so the American people are waiting to be told what to think. And it's so, they've got it so entrenched now that the American people are even afraid to think for themselves. No, I have to wait for somebody to tell me what to think. I don't know what to think yet. Quick, somebody tell me what to think. Quick, somebody tell me what to think. What do I think? You see, this is the American public. So they always play that two-side shit. This is a hot button item. You see? And so That's why they're treating it. That's why they're doing this bullshit the way they're doing it. Now watch this next part. Jane Pauley, the bitch in the canary yellow, and then then they roll in the Zionist Jew, roll him in, cue Zionist Jew to tell more lies and vomit, and then they're gonna see like the split screen with him and Dr. King's son. And I gotta say again, look at this man. If I didn't tell you, and if you just kind of squint, you'd be like, that's Dr. King, dude. He even wears his mustache like his father. They even have that little dip in the top of their lip like his dad, like Dr. King had. That's Dr. King, damn it. And the little widow's peak and all of it. This is Dr. King. He came back. All right. They lied. He was never assassinated, and that wasn't the guy they killed. All right. I'm telling you, shit. All right. Anyways, let's go back.
Dexter King's 1997 meeting with the man imprisoned for killing his father was a breakthrough in James Earl Ray's long fight to be heard. But many saw it as a bizarre, disturbing footnote to a great tragedy. 1 week after the meeting, on the eve of the 29th anniversary of the assassination, today's Matt Lauer spoke with Pulitzer Prize-winning King biographer David Garrow.
You said that the scene of James Earl Ray and Dexter King shaking hands was, quote, sad and surreal. Why?
Yes, Matt. I think it's very sad that the King family and the King children are so uninformed of the history that they could be open to believing that Mr. Ray was not involved in Dr. King's assassination. Mr. Ray was someone of long-standing racist, segregationist affiliations, and as the House Assassinations Committee very correctly concluded 19 years ago, Mr. Ray was probably the trigger man for a wider segregationist conspiracy to kill Dr. King.
But Dexter King and his family members are not the only people who've been asking questions for the last 29 years. If there are some doubts, why is it a betrayal to Dr. King's legacy to meet James Earl Ray face to face and at least try and get some answers to those questions?
Unfortunately, Matt, we can find people who will deny that slavery was bad for Afro-Americans. People will deny that the Holocaust happened in Europe. Unfortunately, people just don't have a good enough historical recollection of how many times, how thoroughly this has been investigated. Mr. Ray testified for 3 days on live national television in 1978, and I think it's fair to say, made a laughingstock of himself.
Mr. Garrow,
Mr. Ray could tell the truth if he chose to.
All right, hang on for 1 second, because joining us now is Dexter King. Dexter, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Mr. Garrow seems to think that you and your family members are being duped by James Earl Ray and his attorneys. What's your reaction?
Well, I am very disturbed by his comments that anyone in this day and age of victims' rights would suggest that it is wrong for a family to question who killed their loved one. The fact of the matter is, I guess I'm really not surprised, because Mr. Garrow, for whatever reason, is doing his job, and frankly, he is an agent for those forces of suppression who do not want this truth to come forward.
Unfortunately, the King family has not looked at the record that the House Assassinations Committee compiled 19 years ago. There's really no dispute among people that know this history well about Mr. Ray's guilt. The real questions that we should be pursuing and that Mr. King should be putting to Mr. Ray are who encouraged and who funded Mr. Ray to kill Martin Luther King Jr. That should be our focus.
I gotta cut in again. You see the arrogance that this fucking Zionist Jew sits up there with? Apparently the family doesn't know this history, and they haven't read the House Assassination Committee, which is made up of nothing but white devils. And so even though it happened to your family, we're the authorities on it, and we know everything, and you should take your cues from us, the white devils. You're sitting up there talking to Dr. King's son, who looks just the fuck like him, and you're trying to tell him, and it's his dad that it happened to, and you think they're not the authority on every goddamn thing that happened? That's why I say, there's a time for nice. There's a time for nice. There is. Alright? But then there's a time to fucking let loose. And he clearly is his father's son, because he is composed and he's a better man than me any day of the week. Because that wouldn't be me sitting up there. I'd be like, bitch, how the fuck you gonna sit up there and tell me with your goddamn 4 eyes and your goddamn fucking thinning hair and you're a Zionist fuck, and you're gonna tell me about what happened to my father and what I should do about how I want to seek answers to my father's death? Wipe your ass with my fucking shoe, bitch, or something. It was something vile, I would have to say. Something. You know, but this is the arrogance. I had to point that out. I had to point that out. All right, let's go on.
I think what is really appalling here is that Mr. Garrow has built a platform on exploiting my father's legacy. If it were not for my family, Mr. Garrow would not have gained access to my father's papers and many other things that have given him a platform to speak out. And to now come back and say that we're misinformed is totally appalling.
What we have here, and what people need to remember, is that Mr. Ray, like other segregationist terrorists from the 1960s, did a tremendous amount of harm to the black freedom struggle. And for Mr. King to be misled into believing in mafia conspiracies is so unfortunately ignorant of the real history.
Dexter?
I met Mr. Ray. He is not a segregationist. I've met segregationists. This man was not born in the South as the media portrayed at the time. The fact of the matter is he was born in Illinois. I met his family. They are not people who strike me as racist. The fact of the matter is this man was set up. And we need to deal with this so that we can move on. The American public deserves the right to know. Certainly the family of the victim deserves the right to know what happened to their loved one. We need to stop living in denial in this country.
Dexter?
And for once and for all, face this injustice.
The Reverend Jessie Jackson agrees somewhat with Mr. Garrow in saying that James Earl Ray does not deserve a trial until he begins to tell the truth, among other things saying that Raoul never existed. Would you at least agree with that he does need to tell a little bit more of the truth before a trial is warranted?
Well, first of all, Raoul has been located. As I said, there are so many people who are talking about this case as if they're informed. They are the ones that are uninformed. They do not have the up-to-date, latest information.
As with that other great tragedy of the 60s, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the death of Martin Luther King is a wound that will not heal. For some, there will always be a search for the latest information, the clues to a conspiracy, the evidence of some rationale to an otherwise senseless tragedy. Did James Earl Ray kill Martin Luther King? 30 years after the assassination, the third official investigation into the killing found that Ray did commit the murder and that he acted alone. What matters most, of course, is that King is gone. That's time and again for now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jane Pauley, and we're history.
Okay, now you heard Matt Lauer mention Jessie Jackson. You see, of course, Jessie's gonna side with the fucking side of the white devil. All right, and you know, and then you saw she ended it with, but after a third investigation that found that James Earl Ray was the assassin, and so it's what we said, so fuck everything you just heard in this broadcast. You see, the fact of the matter is James Earl Ray did not shoot Dr. Martin Luther King. It never happened. All right, just the same as in the Kennedy assassination, Oswald never took a single fucking shot. It didn't happen. It didn't. And I will tell you unequivocally, I am the authority on the Kennedy assassination. I've been obsessed with it since I ever knew about it. I don't know what age I was when I wasn't on Earth when Kennedy was assassinated, obviously. But whenever, and I don't know what age I was when I learned that there was something, another train of thought other than what I had learned about it in school books. Obsessed, I tell you. Obsessed. Like I'm the dude to come to for Kennedy, all things Kennedy assassination. All things. Alright? And so, but this is the same scenario. Oswald never took a single shot. Just as James Earl Ray didn't do it. Didn't do it. Didn't happen. You see? And you must also remember that the time he sat down with Dexter, he was terminally ill. He's dead now. But he was terminally ill then. And people that know they're about to die usually want to get some things off their heart. You know, they just do. You know, you kind of want to reconcile with people. You want to put down old grievances and all of it. And, you know, just, I mean, now there are hardened people that don't give a damn, and most of them are still running around the earth. They don't fear God. That's why I always tell you that the thing that makes the Christian character inferior to the Muslim is in fear of God and the last day. In fear of God and the last day. Knows that God loves you, knows that God is your provider and wants the best for you and all that stuff, but knows that God is to be feared. To fear God in the last day drastically influences the character of the Muslim and makes it superior to the Christian, who thinks that they can just commit all evil on the earth and it doesn't matter what they do with all the fornication and the lying and the drinking and the eating pork and the godless life and all of it that you do, and that you're definitely going to heaven. And no, you are not. Not so says the Jedi, so says the creator of the heavens and the earth, but you don't know who he is because you're following the white man's lie. So this is standard vomit that they sell you. Standard vomit. And of course, as I said, Jessie goes right along with. Now, I use that as my segue because this gentleman now, you should be familiar with him. His name is Steve Coakley. Excuse me. And I want to say he's probably the first person that I ever came across many years ago. Certainly one of the first. I don't remember. But anyways, that even turned me on to this idea that Jessie could have been involved in this. You know? Listen, Ralph Abernathy was Dr. King's closest friend on earth. That's a quote from Dr. King himself. He said, Ralph Abernathy is my closest friend on earth. In fact, that first speech that I showed you at the opening of this production, the mountaintops speech, that's why I tell you you need to go and watch the whole speech, because towards the beginning of that speech he says those words, like, Ralph Abernathy is my closest friend on earth. So it wasn't Jessie. So you have to ask yourself then, why is Jessie just catapulted to the front after Dr. King dies? All right. Now, I will tell you that these videos of Steve Coakley are very long, so I'm heavily editing them down. I'm only choosing specific things to keep it short. You need to do your work and go and put in Steve Coakley's name and watch his stuff. He's got a lot of lectures and a lot of things that he talks about, and just he's a brilliant guy. And I had heard that he died. I'm not clear on that. I'll be perfectly honest with you. But alas, he is a man. He's passionate, and he strikes me as absolutely credible. So we're going to listen to some things that he has to say with regard to Jessie's involvement in the assassination of Dr. King. All right, let's go to those now.
Doctor is the one who was picked to replace Martin King, but Jessie is the one he trained. If you had spent all this time on putting him in place, and you ain't got nobody else around Martin. Now, Andy was supposed to be shot with Martin, but Andy wasn't on the balcony. He was on the floor, so he didn't get it. Ralph was inside, so he didn't get it. Key point, if you spend all that time, and Martin's about to say you are agent, do you understand that you got to press go on the assassination? Because now Martin is so continuously condemning you, you got wiretaps everywhere. And we know what he said about Jessie in front of everybody, but who knows what he said when it was just him and Ralph? Let's let this run, and then we're going to go back and look at it again in straight speed. Look at.
He won a few times.
Look at Jessie. Martin still won't acknowledge him.
Usually when he finished his speech, he was covered.
Yes, go back. Now, I ask you, when you look at it, is that Jesus or Judas? Jesus or Judas?
He won a few times, but I saw him visibly shaking himself.
Nobody would touch him.
He was caught up in it. But
Just let it run, let it run, let it run. Now we're on the day of. Now Jessie done went and told them, look, you better move now.
Reteaching nonviolence.
I'm running out of time. This the last song. They brought him on the balcony at 3:06.
I said, oh.
He was shot with a 30-06.
Oh, no, I called the house, and dinner is not until 6, so we are in no hurry. I said, oh, my goodness. But by doing that, it gave me the wonderful privilege of spending the last hour of his life in room 306. He and Ralph Abernathy and myself. Then he and I went on the balcony. Ralph was still inside. And he was greeting people he had not seen.
I was in the parking lot, and we were suggesting that it was cool, and maybe he ought to go back and take a top coat with him, just in case.
I heard him above me.
This is my man, Hosea.
And we had a limousine. I could touch the limousine, had been loaned to us by one of the local funeral homes. And I heard a voice, the guy who was driving the limousine. He said, Dr. King. Dr. King said, yes, so he said, although the car is on, it's chilly, I recommend you get your coat. And the last word he said in this was, okay, George, get my coat. And I was done said, pow!
Stop. Oh, stop. Go back. Key point. Let's go back. There's the maid right there we were looking for. There's the cart. Oh. Okay, let's freeze it at the highest point where Jesse's back is in the... Right there. Stop. There we go. There's Jessie Jackson. There's the maid. There's the cart. There's the white boy, Lau, L-A-U-E, head of the community strike, a member of the Community Relations Service of the Justice Department, which spies on racial tension. His boss was Roger Wilkins, the nephew of Roy Wilkins. There's Muriel McCullough, the FBI, CIA, Memphis Police Department informant, who now works for the CIA. There's Martin King laying there with the towel over his face. Brother, I appreciate this pointer. This really helped out a lot. There's Ralph. There's Andy. Now, why is Jesse running up this way when everybody else came up that stairway and went that way? Because he had to make sure that room 316 and 317 didn't have no remnant of invader running out of it. Remember, he had just, see, that could have been the invaders running down that ramp right there. And when those people start that phony pointing, maybe the invaders might have went, no, down there. You understand? Because the invaders had what? Okay. Now, there's the maid. There's the cart. You see that cart? There are the wheels. You understand? At 6 o'clock, you ain't changing no beds and no motel? Check. Okay, let's let it run. There's a good shot of McCullough. There's Martin with the towel over his face. There's Martin again.
I looked up and didn't see him on the balcony, except that I saw his shoes sticking out the end of the balcony. All of the police, instead of going to where the shot came from, they were all coming to see what happened. So the picture on the balcony was us trying to say it came from over there.
Stop. There we go. That's good. There's that phony point. There's Jesse's head right there, making sure that he ran up there and gave a phony pointing. Now, here's the problem with the people pointing. All of the people pointing were this way, looking up to Martin. The shots came from behind them, whether from the bushes or from the rooming house, it was behind them. Not one single person said they turned around and saw somebody or at the rooming house. Those that even saw anybody, Solomon Jones, Earl Caldwell, New York, saw somebody moving in the bushes. Check? So how is it that those with their back turns suddenly become so definitive on something they didn't even see? You understand? It's not logical that they're primary sources for a focus. Okay, we can turn the lights down. It was a script, right. So, and Andy's recanted his false pointing.
And covered him from his neck down. Someone had a towel put to it. Blood was just everywhere.
I went out in that yard and I started walking. And all...
Now listen how mad he was.
All the hatred in my life, which was a lot of hatred, came up in me. I went to reach into the air and take molecules, protons, electrons, and make the
That's my man.
And there, as you see,
Stop.
on the shoulders.
Now, what's happening? NBC, Meet the Press, the most watched Sunday news program, goes back to this moment that we're out teaching is a point of distrust and evidence of Martin's dislike to Jesse. They go right back to that spot, put him right on Rockefeller's NBC, toss that ball right up and say, Jesse, now when I toss this ball up, I want you to stuff it home. So he puts a circle around Jesse's head and a circle around Martin's head, calls it close, and says, you were one of Martin's closest associates. What did Martin King say to you the night before he died? What's up, Black?
Louis Jackson. What did you say to Dr. King at that moment? Do you recall?
Yeah, back it up and get that sound in there. And Jesse gets to holding his eyes all up funny like in the negotiator. He gets to...
So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the Lord.
As he concluded the speech, he walked behind, and there, as you see, tapped on the shoulders by one Jessie Louis Jackson.
Highlights two faces and wipes Ralph out.
It's difficult to express it because I think we were all crying. It's different in that the minister stood at the right, Reverend Jim Hudson, Reverend Carl Miller. Many were crying. It was kind of different. It was like we realized he was under this burden, like he had released himself. So he tried not to come to church to speak, he acted as he come to speak. I said, and this was that much with me. We went together.
Stop.
And the crowd.
What did he say? He said, as you know, it was men crying, Ben Hooks and Billy Kyles. And as you know, he asked me to make that speech that night. And I said, I'd only make that speech if I can take Ralph with me. Now, here's the point. There would be no need to do no stupid stuff like that unless something else was going on that compelled the need to give him a chance to reconstruct history, to protect his face from the faceless people who got the facts. There would be no need to do this. It just wouldn't be a need. Was an informant. Billy Kyles is the one that told the police that Martin King don't need no protection that day. Okay? Billy Kyles is the one that made sure Martin King had his tie on. It was the briefing at 4:30 after Ray was checking in at 4 o'clock that said that friendlies will not be wearing ties, coding the people who were on the government side in the assassination scenario would not be wearing a tie. One guy that night was in an argument with Martin King because he was just insisting that he was not going to wear a tie to go to dinner. Who was that? Jessie Jackson. So much so that the argument is what held Martin King on the balcony so the shooting could go down after Kyles stepped away so they could get a better shot. Examined private life of King's successor. It says that after King died, the FBI began to investigate Coretta Scott King, Ralph Abernathy, and Andy Young. They emphatically said, we cannot trust these three, and we must do everything we can. They dropped the investigation of Coretta. They then went on to do to Andy and to do to Ralph what they had done to Martin. That was on April 12th that they signed the memo. On April 12th, I'm going to show you Jessie Jackson announcing that every time there's a crucifixion, there's a resurrection, saying that he is the resurrected man. Now, Jesse's a strong proponent of the no Raul theory. And again, I showed you when I was here last.
We were totally dependent on Dr.
Yeah, turn the lights down. Now run it backwards. Run it backwards. That's Jackie saying that when the assassination went down, Jesse called her. And Jesse said, Jackie, Martin's dead. You're going to hear about it, but Martin's dead. And Jackie, she says, well, what are we going to do now, Jesse? She didn't say, how's Coretta? She didn't say, how's everybody else? She didn't say, is anybody hurt? She said, Jesse, what are we going to do now? Something you want to tell me? Okay, gotcha. Oh, there's the white man, Don Rose. He's very important because Don Rose, the white man, just stop it. Freeze, freeze. Oh, right there. Hold him up against the wall. Don Rose, great, great, great. His name, you all don't know him. I'm from Chicago. Don Rose is the white man that you see when you black to get the white media to report on you. You don't go call NBC, you don't call CBS, you call Don Rose, and he gets the media. Don Rose is the man that Jessie Jackson left town to meet up, who put him on the Today Show the next morning after Martin was killed to start the discussion that Jessie is the heir apparent to Martin King. But everybody don't know Don Rose. He's another one of those white people in the Jewish religion that got their fingerprints on the King assassination. Because I'm going to show you Jessie in the courtyard. Now remember, we saw the people falsely pointing. For the record, in this picture is the man Raoul, who's picked out of a lineup by a white woman named Grable, and Raoul is standing next to Lee Harvey Oswald, who's standing next to Clay Shaw. Point being that the people who killed in the Kennedy came around for the King. Okay? Same squad. Notice Jessie, does he have a tie on? Now remember we heard, stop right there. That's Calvin Moore. Oh, stop right there. Look at Jessie, no tie on. That ain't important yet. That's Ben Branch. Jessie wouldn't wear a tie that night. The briefing to the military men is friendlies will not be wearing ties. Ralph had on a tie. Martin was made to put his tie on. But Jessie emphatically wasn't going to wear no tie. And when we look at the people in the courtyard, notice who ain't wearing ties and who is. If you get the King video #1, you'll see the people without the ties ducking when the camera comes. For the things you're seeing us do now, that's in King Assassination #2 in the video. The only audio back there is a tape called King Assassination 99 or Jackson's role in the King Assassination. They're both the same tape. Okay, keep going backwards a little bit. Now, Jackson's in the courtyard at that moment, but all the staff is at the hospital. Jackson told everybody don't talk to the press. As soon as everybody left, he started talking to the press. Notice the shooting was in the light, and now everybody's gone, it's in the dark. Very important. Okay, let's hear Andy starting right here.
A jar. And started scraping up the blood and said, and crying, it was Martin's precious blood. This blood was shed for us. It was weird. But people freaked out and did strange things. Jessie put his hands in the blood and wiped it on the front of his shirt. And it was, and what do you do?
You tell the truth.
In a moment like that.
Tell the truth.
Abernathy, Young, and others went to the hospital.
Notice nobody's giving a statement.
Where the media began to swarm.
Look at Jessie. Did you hear what he said? Stop in a second. Jessie saying in his southern accent, I need me a ride to go see Dr. King. Anybody got a ride I can go see Dr. King? Now the staff done left with the body. Ralph's in the ambulance with Martin. The rest of the staff's in the cars behind the ambulance. The police, who have cut off all of Memphis, are moving this procession, towards the hospital with a police escort, since all the roads are closed. Now, there's a tape back there. It might be one. I don't know if there is one. I don't think there is one. Coakley TV. But I did a cable show in Chicago laying out the King assassination in Jessie's role. And I said this for the record before. Jessie saw the program. And when Jessie, for him. Because as I mentioned, as Jessie would see me in the public, all my friends go, whoa, here comes Jessie. Whoa, Steve, see, it's going to be fireworks. And then they watch Jessie run around me. And I'm saying, if I'm talking about him, just like if you was talking about me, I'll hunt your ass down. You would never see me run from somebody dogging me out. Especially if it's unrighteous. Jesse's asking for someone to take him to see Dr. King. Now, he could have rolled with the rest of the staff, but he didn't ride with the rest of the staff because it wasn't but 2 phones coming through the switchboard and out, and the one payphone. Jessie runs to the one payphone, calls his wife, then calls Coretta. So can't nobody get to the phone because Jessie on it. So the staff go, Everybody says no talking to the press. They all leave. Jessie sees they all gone. Knows he's looking around. Can I get a ride to see Dr. King? He know ain't nobody gonna take him but another staff member. After he says it long enough, ain't nobody to take him. The press says, come on, Jackson, talk to us. Go.
That's a good thing. Would you tell me just what happened so we can get this film in, please?
Jessie always senses the moment. And it was an epical moment. And he was there.
The black people's leader, our rule, the once before 500-year leader, has been taken from us by hatred and bitterness. Even as I stand in this hour, I cannot even allow hate to enter my heart at this time, for it was sickness, not meanness, that killed us. People were...
Now let's take that comment. It was sickness, not meanness, that killed him. Versus Hosea saying, I was so mad I could take protons, neutrons, and kill me some white folk. But immediately, like Bevel, Jackson then forgave people he don't even know who they are. See, it's something you give an absolution and ain't even nobody in the confession box. You might as well forgive Casper the ghost. But he's already forgiven. Don't worry, don't mess with him, because it ain't nothing. It was meanness, hatred, or some old bullshit. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm sorry, but listen.
Father crying, hollering, oh God. And I immediately started running upstairs to where he was, and I caught his head, and I feel his head, and I asked him, I said, Dr. King, do you hear me? Dr. King, do you hear me?
Stop.
And
Jackson gets up there, now that everybody's gone, and begins to say, I was the last person to talk to Dr. King. And I held him in my arms, and I said, Dr. King, can you hear me? Dr. King, can you hear me? And he never touched him. He never touched him. See, he used that statement to say that's how he got the blood on his shirt. But Andy just told you how he got the blood on his shirt. What did he do? He did this. He did this. You catch that? Yes, sir. Jesus or Judas? Okay, so now Ralph Abernathy was the only person to hold Martin, just to be clear. And Ralph held him from the moment of the balcony till they put him on the stretcher. Ralph was the only one in the ambulance. Ralph was the only one in the operating room. Ralph was the only one at the autopsy. And you will cry when you hear Ralph Abernathy say, when they take that saw and cut open Martin King's brain, and he says, and I was looking there on that gurney at my buddy, and when they cut his head, I knew my buddy wasn't in that body anymore. And on that last speech, Martin King, before he makes that, I've been to the seen the glory to come in the Lord, he turns to Ralph Abernathy and he tells the audience, I want you to know something here tonight, that my best buddy in the whole wide world is Ralph Abernathy. And why did he have the need to tell everyone who he loved as his friend unless he felt someone trying to falsely plant themselves as that person? And again, since Jessie was 6 in the order, it was no way he was the heir apparent, and Martin had already carved out the structure of the organization. They all knew it was Ralph after Martin. Al Sampson could come up here and tell you how many times Martin engraved. No, don't do it. Let's go here, because we're running out of time, and I'd rather have you see this than hear me.
To hold his head. By that time, Dr.
While the rest of King's aides huddled through the night at the motel, Jackson rushed back to Chicago, where rage was already sweeping the city.
Stop. The cable show I do in Chicago. I'm straight up, down, seeing all over Chicago. Jessie watches the show. But in the show, I mentioned Al Sharpton inspired me. Jackson calls Sharpton and accuses him of inspiring me to attack Jackson. Sharpton says, well, what did Coakley say? And Jessie gave him every detail. Sharpton said, and I wrote it down. He said, and then I went to see Reverend Claude I'm going to say Claude Wyatt. He said, I went to see Wyatt T. Walker, who was SCLC's field director at that time. And when he told Wyatt T. Walker what I said, Wyatt T. Walker said, protect Coakley. Don't let nobody mess with him. And tell Coakley that if Jackson ever attacks him or harasses him about that analysis, just ask Jessie to tell Coakley how he got out of Memphis on the night of the assassination, since the planes, the boats, the trains, the buses, and the cars were all cut off. When I mentioned that to Dick Gregory right before he came here a couple of weeks ago, Dick said, well, you know what happened, don't you? The FBI called the airport and let one plane out. One plane that had one Negro man on it, who got away from the other saying he was sick. Jessie says, well, you know, when they had the investigation, they never talked to me. Nigga, you left. You wasn't there. And that's when Don Rose says, and Jessie and I began to plan his resurrection. Then you're going to see Jessie at April 12th say, I'm ready for leadership now. And only 4 days after that, the FBI set up the plan to attack Ralph Abernathy and Andy Young and Coretta Scott King, with no plan whatsoever to attack Jackson, who's far faster, whose future was far higher than those donkeys and those mules. That thoroughbred would have been the one to stop unless he was yours. Okay, let's go.
When we were going to get in the car, it was really a silence, you know. It was who's going to speak first, you know, because I didn't have the words to say, and he didn't know what to say. And when he came home, he got in the bed with his shoes on and the shirt. And he just laid in the bed.
In public, Jackson had an altogether different demeanor. It was as if he could see his destiny opening up before him at last, and he rushed toward it. 14 hours after the shooting, he appeared on the Today Show. Later that day, while listening to the solemn tributes at the Chicago City Council's memorial service, Jackson tapped Mayor Daley on the shoulder and asked to speak. Pointing to his shirt, Jackson said, "This blood is on the chest and hands of those who would not have welcomed the king here yesterday." Then he called for calm in the city and end to the rioting. Meanwhile, at Jackson's directive, a movement publicist was booking interviews on Chicago TV shows. They were falling all over themselves to get Jessie, particularly as the word got out later that morning that Jessie had returned to Chicago and was wearing clothes stained with Dr. King's blood and was appearing before the city council and so forth. Don Rose accompanied Jackson to the tapings, the two men riding from studio to studio in the back seat of a car.
He was thinking very clearly, thinking ahead, thinking of, frankly, his own career, the future of the movement, and his role within it. And we were both reinforcing each other with the view that Jessie was a very logical successor to Dr. King.
But you know, I see you so much alive, asking what to do. Well, sir, I am available now. I'm more convinced than ever that every time that there is a crucifixion in right and righteousness, that inevitably and universally that there is a resurrection. That is the
King Eves, long resentful of Jackson, saw his behavior as brazen opportunism. They were already angry that he had spoken to the press in the hours after the assassination, and furious that he had so dramatically inflated his own part in the story of King's final moments.
A lot of those resentments that had been buried in the movement and that allowed us to work alongside each other, but never got expressed in emotion and frustration.
Jesse's walking in front of her at her own funeral. Look at him walking in front of her, and watch him turn around and look at her, and she turns her head.
Their story went. King had
Watch this.
Jackson, told him to go do his
Look,
own thing.
she sees him looking, turns her head. He turns back, she turns back. That'll be in the tape. You can slow it down and look at it. Cut. Cut. Stop. Now watch this. Watch this. This is Pepper's book. Let's turn the lights on real quick. Now, we're running down on time. I got to talk real fast. Page 246 of Pepper's book. In 1968, Ernestine Campbell and her husband owned the Trumpet Hotel, which abutted the Lorraine. No one has ever talked to her or asked her about what she saw on the fateful afternoon. Ernestine says she left the hotel and started home just before 6 p.m. Driving her gold bronze Cadillac up Butler and turning right on Mulberry, as she passed the Lorraine driveway on Butler, she saw Dr. King standing on the balcony. She didn't hear anything because she had the car windows up and the radio was on. As she turned the corner onto Mulberry, she looked up and saw Dr. King lying on the balcony. She thought he had had a heart attack. She stopped for a minute, wondering why people weren't running up to the balcony. Her attention was in particularly drawn to Jessie Jackson, whom she said had one foot on the first step of the stairway, looking up to the balcony while bent over, putting something into a suit bag. Then Don Rose, the white man that you just saw, when I started following that theme, I then found in the book Jessie by Michael Frady, Don Rose, the white boy you just saw, he said Rose arranged appearances on 2 or 3 local programs, and the next day, the two of them rode from station to station, sitting in the back seat of this car they had available to him with the driver. Jackson was attired in a dashiki, recalls Rose, although his blood-smeared sweater, quote, I think he also had it with him. He had some kind of tote bag, and he just wouldn't let it go.
So I think I want to stop it there. I wanted to give you enough to whet your appetite that you will go and you can watch all of his lectures. But I think it's clear, and I think and I hope that I presented enough of his portion that where there's smoke, there's fire, everybody. And there was some key things that were undeniable in his presentation. You know, I would cite for you, like he said, well, you had Andrew Young testifying to, and Andrew Young, look, Andrew Young, we know, like that man has been around for 3,000 years. He's highly credible. He's a man of integrity. I could go on and on and on. One of Dr. King's closest associates, etc., etc., etc. And there you had him on camera saying that Jessie had put his hands in the blood and wiped it on his shirt. Everybody knows Ralph Abernathy was the last one to hold Dr. King in his arms as he lay dead or dying. Then Jessie gonna just come up and be like, oh, put the blood on his shirt and then make sure everybody else leave, and then all of a sudden he's the only one left there to talk to the press. You see what I'm saying? I mean, he's dusty on some level. We don't know all the details, but I feel as though I know enough to at least declare him dusty. You know what I mean? At the very least, like, you definitely on the dusty list. And it's you know, wow. I mean, this is one of the things I hate about history, and why I always wish I had a time machine, because there's some mysteries in history that just plague me and just bug me so much. Like, damn it. And especially, you know, you don't live in a world where people tell the truth, so you can't get any answers. You know, it's just, you can't get any answers, and then you don't know what's the truth. And if you get an answer, I wish I could just travel back in time and just, even if I was invisible, at least I could get the answers, you know. Oh, it kills me. it kills me. I can't even explain that to you. Um, but we also saw, and I think this is probably the most important, if certainly amongst the most important things, that we saw the birth of Head Coon. You see, he asserted himself as, because when he, they said when he taps Mayor Daley on the shoulder in Chicago, and is like, let me, and asked to speak, and then pointed to the blood on his shirt and said, this blood is for the people that didn't want Dr. King to speak here, and something, something. And he got to the mic and declared, that, at calling for calm and to stop the rioting. That was the moment that you became Coon. You see, if you weren't up till then, certainly in that moment you were, and then since, and it goes right hand in glove in what I've been preaching, here on my channel to you guys, about that these people, the Jessie Jacksons and the Al Sharptons of the world, are there to appease the slave master, to keep us calm. You see, I've said, and I continue to say, that Dr. King's movement was a disaster to black people. This day we mark, it's Dr. King, and, and you see everybody, they run commercials on TV, because of Dr. King I can do this, and because of Dr. King I can do that. But I don't hear nobody saying that because Dr. King, my people have economic, security. I don't hear anybody saying because of Dr. King we have black corporations that are multinational. I don't hear. You see where I'm going? I could keep going down the list. So Dr. King's, for all his efforts, and God bless him, I believe that he believed what he was doing was right, and that's why he endeavored to do what he did. So I'm not taking that away from him. I'm just saying that we can now look, and I wonder, again, going back to my time machine, I wonder if I would love to go back to that time and be on the ground and talk to people that were alive at the time and say, do you think this is a good thing for black people to be trying to do all this damn integration? Do you think that? I can't believe that everybody of that time was thinking, yeah, we want to integrate with these white devils. For the love of God, let us. You know what I mean? I don't believe that. There had to have been independent thinkers. There always is, in this day and age, I'm one. So I have to believe that there were people like myself that existed then that weren't feeling this, that just weren't feeling it, like we not So I think that, but it was the worst thing that ever happened to us after slavery, was integration, and all this fight, this marching for civil rights and all that. Fuck that. Just let us be separate and apart from you. Stop with the damn police brutality. Stay out of our damn communities, and let us work it out. We would be a better people right now. We really would. We really would. Even to this day, you people say, why would you give your child up for adoption? You should raise your own child. You know what I mean? Because a child that's put into adoption, okay, if your parents died or something like that, for the love of God, somebody please adopt this child. Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm talking about cases where the parents are alive, and for whatever reason they give up the child. Oh, we just didn't want a child, or something. But anyway, when you put a child into adoption and stuff like that, they long for their parents. They never feel whole. The list, I could go on. And so we're that adopted child. We were forced into a family that didn't want us. And we fought and bled and died to be in that family. That's what makes it so just sickening in a way. you know. And so we're in this family that doesn't want us, that abuses us, that incarcerates us, that murders us, that poisons us, that kills us off with disease, that just does it all. It is the worst thing that ever happened to our people, was to try and integrate with these people. And nobody else anywhere in the world ever in the history of man has done that. Nobody has ever fought, bled, died, and went to jail to be in the same house with the people that don't like them. I don't know Dr. King, and alas, unfortunately, I'm never going to meet him. You know, and you don't know what motivates men at high levels of high attention and fame and all that kind of thing, you know. And so we hold him up as this honorable man, but he was not the Messiah. He was not the Prophet Muhammad. He, you know, he wasn't. So just, I mean, you don't know what really went on. We just don't. But we do know that Jessie is dusty, and it seems like karma now is coming back to bite his ass because of the footage we saw from down there in Ferguson, where, and I almost felt bad. I did feel bad for him. Not almost, I did, when I saw that footage of the little dudes on, I think they were on bikes or something, or some of them were on bikes, some were on foot or whatever, and Jessie was the passenger in this like little station wagon looking car. And they was like, Jessie, you need to get the fuck up out of here. We don't need you up here. We don't need you. And they was calling him all kinds of names and everything. And he was just catatonic in that moment. He couldn't even speak. And I just felt like, wow, what does that feel like? What does that feel like? You know, but the universe will always come back and bite your ass. It will always do that. That's why you must always put out good things in life. You must. You must. I'm telling you, it's one of the keys to a peaceful life. If you don't believe that, that's why your life is always faced with a bunch of turmoil. If you don't believe that, what I just said to you, your life, and practice it, your life will always be filled with turmoil. I promise you. That is a guarantee, 100% truth. I'm telling you. And so, you know, the universe is biting him, you know. And alas, there's always been coons and agents, provocateurs and spies and, you know, agents of the white devil installed in our organizations and groups. You know, it was, we all know Dr. King was under FBI wiretaps and stuff like that, but it was more than that. There was always people on the inside. There was people on the inside when it came to Malcolm. You see? That's why I say with the organization I'm trying to start, that I always tell you guys, history is the blueprint. History is the blueprint. The blueprint. That's why you don't let nobody be a part of our shit that is not us. Period. That's first. Then, we live in an age of technology now where we can Google motherfuckers and find out all your shit. That we can pay for background checks to know exactly who the fuck you are. Period. So there won't be any infiltrations going on. You see? If you keep the damn Tupperware container closed, I promise you roaches will never get in. They can't get in. They can't get in. You see? But it's when you crack that top of that container, you don't bitch now when you got roaches up in there. You see? You did that. You did that. See? So history is our guide, and that's one of the reasons why I know that this organization will be highly effective, highly productive, and airtight. 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 And I'm a no-nonsense type of person, and I'm fearless, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind and to say what is and call some shit some bullshit on the just on the front end of it, you know. And if I'm not interested in being politically correct and nice and all that stuff, you must do what needs to be done. You must meet the fierce urgency of now. The fierce urgency of now, and that drastic times require drastic measures, and they require people that understand that and are willing to meet that challenge. I'm that dude. I'm one of them. I'm one of them. I'm one of them, definitely. So Jesse is not worthy, I think, of our respect. Now, do we discount his entire history? I'll leave that up to you. You know, I would suggest to you that had Jesse not run for president back in the 90s, or was it the 80s? I don't remember. Anyways, if he hadn't run, you wouldn't have Barack Obama sitting in the Oval Office right now. If Shirley Chisholm hadn't run for president, you wouldn't see Obama sitting in the Oval Office. If Al Sharpton hadn't run, you wouldn't see Obama in the Oval Office. So these things all play a role. They do. You know, so even for nothing, for just that, you see, because Jesse was being taken serious as a candidate. White folks liked him and everything, you know, and it was only because they tried to say he was anti-Semitic when he made the Hymietown statement. You know, again, the Zionists that are not even fucking Jews, but they always want to bitch and complain about somebody's anti-Jew. If you're not something to begin with, I can't be anti-you, period. If you're not gay and I say something anti-gay, you can't accuse me of being against you if you're not fucking gay. Just as if I wasn't a black man and you said something to me that was anti-black, I can't say you're against me when I'm not even fucking black. You feel what I'm saying? So I mean, it just, come on, man. Anyway, but that's what derailed his run for the White House. But he also showed a certain blueprint, and he showed it was possible to get certain demographics. So without him, Barack Obama would not be in that Oval Office right now. So he has done things. I just cited one. But I don't think you can discount a person's entire life for something, you know. So, but alas, but having said that, at the same time, he's still, excuse me, he's still in the dusty category. You see what I'm saying? And we're over Jesse now. Like, sat your ass down and just wither away into the background and live out your days until, you know, the creator says it's time for you to come home now. You know, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. But this guy, Steve Coakley, is really something, you guys. And I see a lot of myself in him, you know. But he's really something. And he is somebody that does his jurisprudence and he does his work to bring forth the things that he brings forth. And if you go and watch this entire presentation, I think you'll be very impressed, because it really is good. I brought you all of the key points though, so you didn't miss anything really. And as I told you before I started it, I heavily edited it down, like heavily, you know, which was a lot of painstaking work on my part, because you have to watch the entire thing to know where you want to cut, and then, oh my god, I missed it, and I have to go back and I have to watch that whole segment again, and then, oh, okay, there's where I'm cutting, and it's a lot of work. So I always tell you guys, for you guys that don't do videos, it's very easy for you to sit back and point fingers, but you need to get off your butt and do a goddamn video, and your whole perception will change. Especially if you're bringing the type of productions that I and others do. You know, this isn't, oh, turn on a webcam and then, oh, look, I'm making a YouTube video. Look, no, it's a lot of work. A lot of work. It's a lot of work, and you have to know the technology, and then you have to learn the different apps and all the other crap, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But I do my best to make it look easy so that it is a smooth presentation for you. So that's what I wanted to contribute to this now as we mark Dr. King's birthday. I wanted to do something, but as you guys, as I said to you at the beginning, you know, I wanted to go under the rug, and I wanted to try and bring only things in this production that I thought either people don't know or that is little known. You know, I don't want to bring you stuff that people already know. Like, that's a waste of our time. We know that already. That doesn't move us forward. So, hopefully I've presented something here that you didn't know, and that you were grateful that now you have been made aware of as it relates to the Dr. King assassination. And that it will inspire you now to go and do more reading and research and learn this in its complete, learn everything that is knowable about this. You should do that. You should do that. As I say, one of the things that makes you a true black person and a true African is that you must always seek knowledge. You must know who you are. It's your state of heart, or it's your commitment, it's your devotion, it's your love for your people, your sense of connection and pride, all those things. That's what makes you a black person. That's why it's so easy for these damn mixed people. They want to, oh, I'm mixed, and that basically just means they're not black. So just, I don't have any time for you. That's fine. Go be in your little mixed world then. That's fine. Go, go, go. Because then you're leaving a seat for somebody who's real. So take your shit to the next ballroom, bitch. We're over you. We're over you. And you should be over yourself. Alright, you guys. I'm going to leave it there. I would just like to say to anyone who is under the sound of my voice for the first time, I am the Jedi. I have over 300. I'm working on 360 videos now. I'm well over 350 now. But alas, I have nearly 360 videos on my channel. A great portion of my videos, I'm actually on camera. I'm not one of these people that sits in the shadows and doesn't reveal himself. I like to do videos where I'm on camera. It's a lot more work even when I do those. I'll say to everybody, not just new people. It's a lot of work when you're on camera because the file sizes are different. When you record from the camera that I use to record my on-camera videos, the files are larger, so that it's a lot more time that it takes to produce a production. When I do a haves and have-nots video, one review is 6 hours, up to 6 hours. You see, it depends on how the episode went. If the episode was short, was just nothing really going on, and I rarely have ever done like a 20-minute review of that show. But if I can do like a 20-minute review, okay, I can probably get that one up in 3 hours. You see, between editing and all that kind of stuff. But if it's a really good episode, I've got to give all the detail and all that stuff. I'm looking at least 6 hours, to complete the entire thing. The time it takes me to sit on camera and do it, but then also the uploading time, because I have to put it in one thing to compress the file after I've edited it. Then, because if I do a one recording, then the quality isn't as good for you. So I have to do them in 30-minute clips. That's what my camera is set for. 30-minute clips, that way they're high definition. And so I have to edit those together. However many segments it is, they have to be edited together, and I have to make it look like you won't even know that it was edited together. That takes time. This is after I've sat on camera and reviewed the whole thing. Forget the time it took me to watch the episode and take notes. Alright? Now I'm on camera doing it and I have to do segments. Then I have to upload it. And then I have to edit all the segments together and smooth them out. Alright? And work all the transition stuff. All the effects. Then I have to download it to my computer. Because at that point it's in a different program. Then you have to upload it to your computer. Once it's uploaded to the computer, then you have to put it in a different thing to compress the file. And depending on how big it is, that can take 45 minutes on each time, because you may be at however many gigabytes, and then when you compress it and it finishes, it's still too big. So you may have to go through that process 2 or 3 times. That's before you even start uploading it to damn YouTube. Then once you're uploading it to YouTube, that takes forever. Then once it's uploaded to YouTube, then you have to do all of your tags, and you have to write the video description, and you have to do the categories, and you have to do all the stuff, and it's a lot. I'm telling you, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a labor of love. You have to be motivated to do this, to do the type of work that I'm doing. You know, you have to be motivated. Otherwise, it won't happen. It won't happen. So, as I said, to new people that are on the side of my voice, and all of my videos are not over 2 hours long like this one. I wanted to keep this one short, but I wasn't really concerned about time, because alas, this is a tribute to Dr. King, and it's very important information surrounding his life. And I'm bringing information that I think is little known to a lot of people that are under the sound of my voice. And so I never sacrifice knowledge for the sake of time. If there's going to be a casualty here, it's going to be time. It's not going to be the knowledge. And so I always say, if my video is too long, then you should watch it in sections. You know, watch a few minutes here or there when you have time, and then come back to it. You know, they're fine. You know, and so, but all of my stuff that's on my channel is complete knowledge. There's a wealth of knowledge here on this channel, a wealth of knowledge, a treasure trove of knowledge. And I have even impressed myself at different times when I watch videos back that I haven't seen for, you know, months or something, and I'll see a video and I'm like, wow, that's really a good video. Forgetting that I did it, just it's a good video. Like, that's some good stuff right there. And so most of my videos are that, a wealth of knowledge across all topics, all genre, everything. It's all there. It's all there. And then I have my comic relief moments when I do my television reviews of shows. Then I just like to let my silliness come out, and I just go someplace else, you know, and I try and take you on a journey of entertainment with me in those videos, and make it entertaining and fun for my viewing audience. But again, I'm still working hard. So I'll leave it there, you guys. So as I say to the new people, I'd like to have your subscription. Check me out. If I'm the brand for you, then do subscribe. I don't want anybody subscribing to me that doesn't want to be here. I want to be clear about that. I don't want any sympathy or pity. I don't. I want you. I'm happy to have your subscription if you're here for the right reasons and because you want to be here. All right. But I will tell you, you will not find another channel like this one, because I truly stand alone as a person in life. I do. I know that about myself. I do. I would like to meet me. I was just talking to my best friend on the phone last evening, and I was saying how, and I've said this for many years, like, I just don't know me. I don't know anybody like me. I would like to meet me. I would like to meet me. So, but that serves me well, because everything that I do in life is usually different than most people. And I think that serves what it is to be my calling in life, and that is to have an impact on humanity through the uplift, education, and liberation of my people. That is what I'm most passionate about. So I welcome you to my channel. To all of my troops, don't forget to share the video. We really want to step that up even more in this new year, you guys. Let's really commit to sharing those videos. Let's share the videos, and especially productions like this, you guys. This needs to go across the world. It really does, because I'm telling you, I get people all the time that send me stuff, and the most rewarding comments that I get is when somebody says to me, I did not know that, or I just learned this, Jedi, from this video. It's the most rewarding thing, you guys. It is, because it makes all of it worth it. All the long hours, you know, it makes it worth it. Like, okay, and that's what gives you the strength and the drive to continue. You know, when you start a video, it's like, oh, here I go again. You know, especially when I do videos like this, where I'm doing articles and videos and trying to research the information and compile the stuff to put together how the thing is going to go and present a production to you. It's a lot. And there's so much work that has already gone on before I click that button and you hear me say, what's up, everybody? This is the Jedi. There's already been days of shit before that. You know what I mean? Like, it don't start there. That's like one thing in the process. You know what I mean? Certainly it's been hours, you know, depending on what it is I'm covering in that particular piece, but yeah, it's a lot, you guys. It's a lot. But I'm encouraged, because I have really great subscribers who talk back to me, and you guys, I want you to know and remember that your comments matter to me, and that's why I make such an effort to speak back to everyone. I do. So I appreciate it. As I said, it's not just me, it's all of us. This is a group effort here on this channel. So I thank you guys all again for listening and watching. This is the Jedi.
We are in a race between education and catastrophe.
The knowledge.